All right, welcome back to ABA exam review in our RBT exam practice question series, where we're going through a set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A second grader wants to improve his grade, so he studies extra hard for a science test. He scores a B and shows his sister, who says couldn't get an A. The second grader no longer shares his grades. Why? Reinforcement punishment question. Where do we start? Well, you can either start with how did the behavior change, or was something added or taken away? Personally, I like to ask myself, how was the behavior changed? Because if the behavior hasn't changed, it's going to be difficult to determine. But we know what happens in this scenario. The second grader shows his sister, or he scores a B, shows his sister, who as a result says couldn't get an A, and now the second grader no longer shares his grades. His behavior decreased as a result of his sister saying couldn't get an A. Sister saying couldn't get an A punished his behavior. So we know it's punishment. So now we ask ourselves, well, was the consequence added or was the consequence taken away? Well, we know the consequence was the sister saying couldn't get an A. So she's adding this verbal stimulus in response to him showing her the grades. So we've added something that's reduced behavior. Added positive, reduced punishment. The second grader no longer shares his grades. Why? Positive punishment. You should do that for every single reinforcement and punishment question. Break it down piece by piece. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you get very good and very quick at this. But do that. That's why we practice, right? Don't get lazy during practice. Doing it that way is going to not only increase your fluency, but that's how you get faster. You don't get faster by rushing. You get faster by getting better at the exam. Which of the following strategies might be most effective at reducing ratio strain? Well, first, you need to ask yourself, what is ratio strain? And we know ratio strain is when we fade reinforcement too quickly or increase the response effort too quickly and responding no longer occurs. So typically, if we, let's say, go from a continuous schedule in FR1 to maybe, let's say, an FR5, we've now increased the response requirement from 1 to 5 rapidly, and now responding may slow down. That's ratio strain. So how are we going to reduce ratio strain? A, rapidly increase the response effort needed to earn reinforcement. Well, one of the reasons ratio strain happens is response effort increases too quickly. So we don't want to rapidly increase response effort. B, rapidly decrease the amount of reinforcement earned. If we're decreasing the amount of reinforcement earned, what are we doing? We're fading that reinforcement, which again leads to ratio strain. C, gradually decrease the amount of reinforcement earned. Much better, right? A good, effective way at avoiding ratio strain is to gradually fade, right? We want to gradually fade reinforcement and gradually increase response effort. We don't want to do it too rapidly. And then D, gradually decrease the response effort needed to earn reinforcement. Well, this way we're thickening the schedule. We're offering more reinforcement. We're making it easier to earn reinforcement. That's not going to necessarily cause ratio strain. It might cause satiation, but it's not necessarily going to lead to ratio strain. If we want to reduce ratio strain and we want it to be effective, we've got to C, gradually decrease the amount of reinforcement earned. And the key word there is gradually. A client often screams at the top of their lungs. The function is not obvious at this time. You are to take momentary time sampling data on screaming and set the interval at 25 seconds. The client screams right at 24 seconds, 3 intervals in a row. How many responses should you record? We know we're using momentary time sampling. Momentary time sampling sees us doing what? Well, we are looking at the end of each interval if the client is or isn't engaged. So how long is our interval? Our interval is 25 seconds. So at 25 seconds or every 25 seconds, we're going to check on the client's behavior. If they're responding, it counts. If not, it doesn't. The question says the client screams right at 24 seconds. How many responses should you record? Well, the interval is 25 seconds. Momentary time sampling says it's the end of the interval. 24 seconds isn't the end. 25 is. No matter what, we have to record 0 responses because they're screaming right at 24 seconds. Some clients who pick up on it sometimes do this. They know that you're looking right at 25 seconds and will scream at 24 seconds. You can't record a response because you're using momentary time sampling data. And that's what makes discontinuous measurement sometimes very restrictive, right? If you're using momentary time sampling, you can't fudge it and say, well, it was close enough. No, it's got to be precise. It's got to be at 25 seconds. 24 seconds does not count. So how many responses do you record? Well, 0. It doesn't matter if they actually did scream. Based on the measurement system we're using and the time of our interval, we can't record any responses. The Pomodoro method is a popular way to study that involves extended periods of study time followed by short breaks. If the breaks are 3, 5, and 10 minutes long, what is the average IRT for study periods? Couple different things here. First, we have to know what IRT is, which is inter-response time, time in between responses. Second, we have to find an average. And when we're finding an average, how do we do that? Well, we add up, or we take all of our data points and add them up, and then we divide by the total number of data points. So let's first deal with inter-response time. We know we're looking at breaks in between study time. So time in between studying is our inter-response time, right? Because studying is a response, time in between. So first inter-response time are 3 minutes. Second inter-response time is 5 minutes. Third inter-response time is 10 minutes. So in between the first set of studying is 3, then 5, then 10. So those are our inter-response times. Now to find an average, we've got to total up all of our data points, which gives us 18. And then we divide by the total number, so 3. So we divide 18 by 3. And what do we get? Well, we get 6 minutes. This question involves a couple of things. You have to know what IRT is. You have to know how to find it. And you also have to know how to find an average. If you don't know how to find an average, you must learn. Not hard. It takes a little practice, but you have to be able to do it as an RBT. You also have to find totals, rate, averages, all these things, okay? Yes, it's math, but you have a calculator on the exam, and as long as you understand the concept, it's not too bad. So what is our average IRT for study periods? Well, C, 6 minutes. Timmy takes a picture of the beach and attempts to send it to his girlfriend. He receives a message saying that the message could not be sent. Timmy tries again and gets the same message. He quickly tries 3 more times before finally giving up. Timmy's most likely experiencing what? We're looking at Timmy's behavior here. So we know Timmy took a picture of the beach and wants to send it to his girlfriend. He receives a message saying that the message could not be sent. So typically you send your text message and the reinforcement is it goes through, right? It completes and then you get messages back, so on and so forth. This time the message did not go through. Timmy did not get his reinforcement. Reinforcement was withheld for sending the message. So what does Timmy do? He tries again. Then tries 3 more times very quickly. So already his responding is increasing. It's increasing in intensity, right? He's moving quicker. He's doing it rapidly. And then he gives up. So he's experiencing extinction, which is causing what? Well, an extinction burst, right? A temporary increase in responding as a result of extinction, which leads to, right, an extinction burst. And now his behavior is going to decrease. He's not going to keep trying to send that message over and over. It isn't B, spontaneous recovery, because spontaneous recovery occurs post-extinction. And that's when the behavior comes back, right? It isn't a resurgence. Resurgence is a BCBA term, but it's similar to spontaneous recovery. And it isn't D, negative reinforcement. Nothing was removed and increased his behavior. Reinforcement was just withheld for sending that message. And now he's experiencing an extinction burst, a rapid or a increase temporarily in responding. Timmy is most likely experiencing an extinction burst. Marie is planning a wedding and receives an email from the wedding coordinator. The email says, Marie, please look at the blue tablecloths and white tablecloths and tell me which ones you would like to use. This most resembles what type of preference assessment? On the exam, they're going to give you bits and pieces of maybe what an intervention might look like. You've got to pick the best answer. Don't go in expecting to get perfect descriptions every time. You have to pick the best. That's why it says most resembles or most is like or the best answer, right? In this case, we're looking at preference assessment. And with preference assessment, we always ask ourselves, how many stimuli are we assessing at once? If it's one stimulus, single choice. If it's two at a time, it's forced choice. If it's three or more, it's going to be multiple stimulus or free operant. In this case, Marie is looking at a blue tablecloth and a white tablecloth. We're assessing two at a time. The planner is saying, which one do you like better? What does this resemble? Not single choice because she's got two options. It's forced choice, right? It's a paired choice assessment. Not multiple stimulus because there's only two. So Marie is just engaged in a forced choice preference assessment. When discussing consequences, negative means blank and positive means blank. Pretty straightforward, right? We know negative and positive when you're first learning can cause people trouble because especially negative is used often very differently in ABA. What does negative mean in ABA when we're talking punishment and reinforcement? Well, negative, of course, means remove. It doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean punish. And it doesn't mean increase. It means remove. Oppositely, if that's a word, positive doesn't mean good, doesn't mean reinforce. It means add. When we say positive punishment, we're adding a punishing stimulus. When we say negative reinforcement, we're taking away something that's reinforcing the behavior. So negative simply means remove. Positive simply means add. Great. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. Please subscribe for all our updates. As always, let us know when you pass so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.